Hi, we've made some changes to the way that you can import and work with and export tags and tag groups in SharpCloud, and I want to take you through those changes. Now, first of all, just it's worth mentioning what the previous situation was. So up until recently, if you'd wanted to describe your, for example, your projects and programs using a number of tags, you would have had to squeeze all of those tags into a single tags column. So what you'll see we've got here is we've got a mixture of tags that represent what market the project or program applies to, and tags that represent the application. So for example, the first item, the technology refresh program, is a technology application, but it relates to the UK, the rest of the world, and the US markets. We've had to force all of that into a single tags column. So historically, we would have to import the data, paste it into the data grid, and we would have had just one tags column in the data grid. And when we look at the data on our view, we see that we have just all of the tags in no particular grouping, just all alphabetically shown at the bottom of the view. Now, historically, yes, we've been able to go to the story setup and assign the tags to a group, but that's been a little bit of a manual process. And also, those groups that we define in SharpCloud have not been something that we could take back out using the data grid. Well, all of that's changed. So I'm going to go back to my spreadsheet, and I'm going to unveil a couple of additional columns here. So now we're seeing a couple of additional columns here in the spreadsheet, and this is because we can now structure our tags data into separate tag columns. We don't have to squeeze it all into a single tags field. So you'll see here that we could break out the data that we previously were using into separate tag application column and tag market columns. And that allows us then to also break out the values, so that we put the appropriate ones into what essentially are our tag groups. And by separating our tag information into these separate columns and separate groups, we also will have the data held in that format in the data grid, and therefore something that we can then bring back out when we export the data. So we no longer need to have a single tags column, so I'm going to delete that for the moment, and let's see what happens when we bring this data in using our tag groups. So before I paste in the new data with the new tag groups, I'm going to just clear everything out. So I'm going to start off with deleting the actual item tags that exist in the story now. So we're going to just make it back into a completely sort of blank story in terms of tags, and I'll get rid of the data and we'll just paste from scratch. So if I get rid of all these items, let's imagine this is a new story and we're ready to paste in our data. Now when I paste in the tag group columns in the format tags dot and then the name of the group, separate columns are created in the data grid. So you'll see here that we've got the tag application column, the tag market column. We've also still got an overall tags column, which is still maybe useful, and I'll show you maybe how that could be used in a short while. But in short, we've got our tag groups now created as part of our data. When we click OK, at the bottom of our view now, the tags are now separated according to the tag groups. Now we can still choose which tag groups to show, so we've still got that option in our view options to go to the quick filter, and while we're showing the tags, select which particular groups we want. But the key thing is that those groups were created automatically on import from our data. And if we look at the story setup, we'll see that yes, those tag groups were created under items and tags, and there they are. So we haven't had to do anything manual to this point. Now there might be a point within the use of your story where you start to add some additional tags. So for example, I might be doing something temporary, such as during a workshop, marking some items that we're saying are important for our particular application, and using the edit menu over here to assign maybe a tag to those items, such as selected for review. So when we add that tag, we see first of all that it appears at the bottom of the screen, but it's outside any of our existing tag groups. So really it's just being held as a tag without a group. And if we go and have a look at that in the data grid, we'll see that that value is shown within the tags column, not within one of the separate tag group columns. So what that means is we can still make use of the tags column as just a catch-all for any tags that don't fall into a particular group. And when we export the data, just to confirm, we get all of the data coming out with its tag group. So if I just go to a separate tab in Excel and paste this in, you'll see here that we've got not only the tags column, but we've got the tags.application and tags.market columns that represent our tag groups. And as a final point, you can define tag groups and import them whether you're doing it by pasting in data or using SharpCloud Query Connect to automate that process, or in fact using the SharpCloud Software Developers Kit. So really now you get a lot more control over the, if you like, the multi-value fields that you bring into SharpCloud. You can get them to automatically define your tag groups and also automatically export them in that format.